Call to order. Okay, we start. Review of agenda meetings from November 3rd. Do we have the agenda from the minutes? Our colleague who's the secretary is not here.
Right. And
So the question is, have you reviewed the minutes, and if so, do you have any adjustments, or are they approved as is?
I
So is there a
reviewed them
motion
while
to-
back.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
I second.
Yeah,
Sure.
okay, we're good. Yeah, I
We're
reviewed them a
fine.
while back and they look fine.
They look fine, yes.
Yeah. The one thing I would say on the minutes is that the notes are very thin. Is that by design? Like very thin, like they don't include some of the richness of the things that we're discussing. But anyways, maybe that's
Because we record the meeting, the written minutes are limited.
perfect.
So,
Okay.
I don't
And the
know.
recording leaves where?
This meeting is being recorded.
Yeah, and
All our
where
meetings.
does it leave? So if somebody actually wants to know the details versus the very
It's on
thin note-
YouTube.
It's on
It's in
YouTube.
the YouTube channel.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay,
And
great.
that actually serves as our formal minutes.
Okay, fantastic. I didn't know that. I learned something new. Thank you, Dean.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then we can keep moving. Public comment.
We don't have any public, so we can.
On that note, are we supposed to invite people for public comment?
It is an open meeting, so it's publicized throughout the county, so they are aware if they would like to come. They can.
Okay. Because this may be something that perhaps we, the members, can think about doing for the future, maybe inviting some of our friends to come and be part of the meeting. You know how, Dean, you encourage us to talk to people in our community, our friends, people that we know in the school, on what's happening, what we could do. So perhaps that's one more thing, right, to get more engagement, just ask them to come and join us. Okay?
My friends say that's why you're there, Mandy. I will tell you.
Mine pretty much said the same thing, and they're at meetings tonight also.
Okay, okay.
But yeah, no, you're right. I mean, and it's important when I go to other groups, I always tell them, hey, we've got this meeting coming up. Here's when the Board of Ed meets. Here's when we meet. In case, and I have all the other ones in case anyone's interested, just so that they know. But some people don't take the time to look it up. But if they know, maybe they would come. So.
And as long as they're using you as their mouthpiece, as long as they're sharing what they might have said.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I wonder too if there's a way of better connecting with PTAs. Have you all had any experience doing that?
Yes. Do you want?
Well, let's keep going on the
Let's
agenda.
keep going?
and then we'll
Okay.
come back to that.
So public comment, so we'll pass that, that's good. Board member comment.
So I'm just gonna really introduce you to your new board liaison.
Checking with the
Senior.
senior, how you doing?
Really just turn it over to him. I just wanted to be here tonight to kind of pass it on to him, since the last time we met, I didn't know it was gonna be my last time to be with you guys for now. But I wanted to be here to kind of just pass the torch to Mr. Wilson here, and I know he'll be a great representative for you all between the board and yourselves, so just gonna hand it off to him and let him
How's
tell you a
everybody
little bit
doing?
about himself.
Glad to be here.
Happy Monday.
Yeah, happy Monday. Just gonna try to catch up and be the best I can. Hopefully, my goal is to get diverse representation and get into some of these other communities. Just being able to get them here to be able to listen or give them input at least one or two times, you know what I mean? Just to hear from as many people. I guess this represent Yoho's agenda item, or should I wait until discussion?
I think I'd do that in discussion.
Discussion, okay, I'll wait. Hello, how you doing?
Welcome. Yay. And Dean, you're now the president.
As the president, the president serves on just a very small, limited number of committees because of the responsibilities that's related to that position.
Great, well.
So I stepped away from policy committee and this committee, regretfully. I love them both.
But you're welcome to come.
Thank you. I'm a little bit of a stickler, so you won't see me sitting here anymore because we don't allow that. If you're not the liaison of this committee, you are not to sit formally at the table.
Okay.
I'll break my rule tonight. from now on, we encourage board members, they're welcome to come to any committee meeting, but they're not to sit at the table. They're to be here to observe. I'll be quiet.
Thank you so much. Great. Should we move? Thanks. Senior leadership comments.
Dr. Alvito?
So that's me. I would say we are hot and heavy into the budget, but I think everybody knows that because of the board budget hearing that we had last week. I know our board's going to speak about the budget on Wednesday. Advocacy is important. We need everything that we can get. I know there is a place on the county executive's website where you can actually go and give feedback, input at any time that you should want. But stay engaged, to be a part of the conversations. The majority of our budget is our people, and our people are important to us, and they are why we can do what we can do. It is, for me, that time of year where I'm doing a second round of school visits for schools that are identified with the state, with some designation, targeted support and improvement. And Dr. Dyson and I got to visit Monocacy Elementary today. Really wonderful things happening in our schools, excellent instruction, A classes, and just the level of vocabulary and the engagement of our students is really impressive. And so I'm thankful for the school system that we have. The other thing I would say is I know snow is kind of an inclement weather is on the front of everyone's minds. We did decide today that we're not going to adjust the interim schedule. We considered that. We worked with FCTA. They said as long as we help the community understand that there would be fewer grades at the first part of the third term than typical, that we would go ahead and stay on the same schedule. They have their 2-hour early release on Friday. That does give them a little bit of time to work on grades. And as far as eligibility, no student becomes ineligible at the interim. You can only become eligible. We really always try to err 100% on the side of students. So those are a few things that are on my mind right now.
Any comments or questions from the No? Okay. Great, thank you very much. Policy committee update.
Okay, so policy committee met in January on the 21st. It wasn't as huge of an agenda as we've had sometimes. I don't have a lot of excitement as I usually bring from that committee, but I'll just give you the update. We talked about policy 437, which relates to bullying. And we talked about maybe combining it with policy 309 to be encompassing for all students, but listening to the staff, the SCPS staff really wanted to keep it separate because it addresses staff needs and in a separate entity student needs. So kind of wanted to keep that separate. So we did not combine those two. Policy 309 and 437, those are the ones that we talked about. Those are coming back to policy committee in February for a red line version, which means that goes back to our legal department, and then they kind of put in some of our suggestions, and then we look at it again. And redlined is great if you guys look at the agenda, because you can see the policy and then you can see the suggestions, and then we go back and make more suggestions, and then they come back in a different color. So you can kind of track the progress of each thing. So that was, am I allowed to ask you if I missed anything, highlights? I mean,
I wasn't there in January.
that's right, you were not. I covered it all.
That's right, you got it.
You just go with it.
We talked about 437, we talked about 309.
309, and what was the other one?
Yes.
Is that what it- those two?
437, 309, and then we talked about 309 possibly becoming 120, which focuses on discrimination, but we did not do that. So the next meeting, which I like to talk about what's coming up for us, so we can discuss if, but again, it's not as exciting, but so policy 510 is copyright laws. Now, when we first started the CAC, we divided up into groups and we had special group projects. So my friend John Denny, who is now the president at Frederick High School, we were a group, and we decided to do policy 510. So we interviewed legal counsel. So we got, I think that was when
What is
Mr.
510, sorry?
I'm sorry, 510 is copyright laws in our policies. Yep. And so we interviewed, I think Mr. Blivis had just come on because we had met with his predecessor here. And then, you know, we went out to do this research. I'm like, well, who is this that we're... So anyway, that's how we got to know him and each other. Anyway, copyright laws really pretty much covers federal and state laws as they relate to copyright. So there's not a lot of discussion with that. Our project was very short because of that also. We came back and said, well, it's pretty much the way it is. You can't change it. But we were talking about, this one has been unchanged, but as intellectual property becomes more on the forefront and discussing when you created, if a teacher created something, does it belong to them? How is it allowed to be used inside FCPS or outside of FCPS, depending on those different things. So that was a conversation that we had. We had talked about, I think there's a policy 305, which I'm sorry, I have to look that back up again, but with an employee creating materials using board resources, like resources that are owned here. So we're gonna come back and discuss that this next meeting. 515 is waivers of policy, so this applies to when you can make an exception to FCPS policy. We discussed maybe rolling it into another one that's more related. Policy 100, which is related to governance of the board. We talked about maybe fitting it into there, but when we come back, we're going to talk about the regulations that also relate to that, and then kind of decide where this should live permanently. There's a regulation 500-36, which is a waiver of board policy. So that's a regulation. So also the discussion is, does all of this belong in policy, or what should actually be more in the regulations? Remember, the regulations are how things happen. The policy is what FCPS wants to happen in terms of the board. So the next meeting is February 25th, and we're going to talk about 309, 437, and 503, which is 503 is actually character education, which we don't do anymore. So there was a recommendation to decommission that policy. So we're going to talk about that. And then 506, which relates to evening high school, and that is just a discussion item on our agenda. We're hoping to finish all of the 500s by June, and then in April, we're going to talk about the 100 series. And so we usually lay out like month by month, these are the policies we're going to address, and then they come back as needed. So if we discuss it and the policy committee is done, we send it to the board for first reading. If they like it, they move on. If not, they send it back to policy committee with some suggestions and ideas, and then we take that back. So we go back and forth. Any questions about any of that discussion?
I can just clarify, policy 437 is bullying, harassment, and intimidation. And policy 309 is discrimination and harassment for employees, applicants, and community members.
Thank you.
437 is specific for students.
Yes.
So that's that discrepancy that you were talking about, the two differences.
And we didn't want to combine them. We had discussed, because the racism policy applies to the entire community, and that purposefully applies to staff, students, families, the entire community. And so we talked about whether or not this could be, but since it's more of a behavior issue, we kept it separate. So that is what we're doing over there.
503, 506, and what was the third one for next time?
Sorry. We're going to talk again about 309 and 437, 503, 506, 508 actually, which is special education.
And all of these also live on the website? All of the
Yes. So under Board of Education on the FCPS website, you can go in there, and I think it's easiest just to Google FCPS Maryland policies, and then you can find you can type it in by number. You can also do a search by keywords. I like to start from the beginning, just wherever you do your search, and just type in what you want to find, and then they'll pop up. And you can do the same thing with regulations. All of it is on the website, like every single one.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any comments, questions? Okay, great. Thank you so much. Let's move on to regulation committee update.
So I am going to ask me to take this one for the team because Chris usually gives this update. So I can give a high-level overview because I have the agenda in front of me. And I do recall, in particular, one Greg and an interesting conversation, but we looked at school security and facility access, as well as reporting and response for school emergencies. And so Scott and Paul were a big part of that. And oftentimes, regulations come forward just because there's a change in definition or new language that we need to align to. In addition, we're reformatting all of our regulations, and so those were sort of unsubstantial changes. We also spent a lot of time on search and seizure arrests and questioning of students, and this was brought forward to RRC because through a couple of incidents, we realized that we felt our SOP and our reg created confusion for administrators, and we certainly want to eliminate that, minimize that to the degree possible. We had a lot of great conversations, and multiple times throughout, we continued to hear staff say, well, that can go in the SOP, that can go in the SOP. One of the things I had heard Dr. Dyson speak to, and I brought up to the team, is clear is kind, and if it's important information, it just needs to go into it. Our principals have all of the policies, all of the regs, and all of the SOPs that they have to be. And so if we can just simplify and put it all in a reg, that's what we want to do. So we had some conversation there. I know Chris actually appreciated that and agreed and said, you really need to, if there's anything of interest to the community, it needs to go right in the regulation. If there's something along the lines of fill out this form, because that's a step that an administrator has to do, even if we reference an SOP, we need to have the SOP. So that was a good conversation, and then the other two meaty ones got kicked to tomorrow as another regulation review committee meeting. So we will revisit student records, and we will spend the majority of the time on creating welcoming schools for transgender, gender students.
Great, thank you very much. And the regulations also, no, they don't live in the website. They also live in the website.
They do the policies and the regulations on the website.
They need to be
Naming and changes will
It's a lot.
But it's really good. I mean, that level of transparency of having everything out is fantastic.
I'm just saying it's more than one evening of reading.
Of course.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of many.
I had no idea. And I read a lot of things, but yeah.
I can
But it's
imagine.
great to have it right there.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, great. So let's move on to open comments and discussion for the executive committee. So any input? I have a few things. I talked to my friends, as you suggested. So one of the things that I heard when I asked, anything that is in people's minds about, for input for the Board of Education, one colleague who is engaged in one of the schools said use of devices. So just to keep in mind, I know the policy may have already been discussed, but apparently use of devices such as phones can be a huge distraction, especially for high school students who are bringing the devices, and there's just, I don't want to use the word addiction, but I will. It's just very hard to put it away. Just people keep just bringing it out, and it's really affecting their engagement with the learning. something to think about as, you know, new technologies come to the foreground, how that's affecting our kids and their learning. The other thing to share is, you know, since you've mentioned policy 437, one question I had for future discussions of the policy is what happens when the student gets bullied in the bus? So not at the school, but in the bus. What responsibility does the driver have if they see, you know, some teasing? I mean, and granted, they're driving, they need to be focused on the road, but this is happening in their domain. So there was a question raised on, you know, what should the bus driver be doing in those cases? And I don't know if there's anything that they can be doing.
Do you want me to kind of
Yeah,
comment?
sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the bus stop, the bus, and school property are all considered FCPS property. So, I mean, that gets a little gray when you have a snowball fight at the bus stop and there are no administrators there to tell them to stop. But the bus driver is a staff member of CPS and they are responsible for those students. So all of the same policies and the student code of conduct all apply on the bus and at the bus stop. So if there's like a fight or bullying at the bus stop or on the bus, all of it, same exact rules apply as if they were in their math classroom.
They can report that to school administration and often do. They'll arrive at school on the bus, administrators are outside, they'll get off, they'll come in, they might say, I had to write a referral today. And they have bus referrals, and so they will share those with the school administration so they can.
I'll share that.
I had an excellent principal actually ride our bus home one day.
That happens sometimes.
So we were waiting for them. My kids were little. I'm like, there is a really large person on the bus. I'm like, oh, and he's about 6'3". He's a very large man, and sure enough, he rode the bus all the way home and all the way back just to take care of whatever was going on, and it didn't happen again.
That's great.
Yep.
Level of engagement.
Yep, I did. I love that. Yep.
And the other thing to share, oh yeah, this is, and I still have to do some more talking to folks on this note, but there seems to be a bit of a level of fear among some of the students who are, from immigrant backgrounds, Latino backgrounds. It doesn't matter, just immigrant backgrounds, right? The whole looking a certain way, having an accent. And what's happening in our communities. So just bringing that up, and I don't know what the school system has been, I can do first, right? I don't know, or what has it been doing, especially for the students that are suffering these challenges.
I can speak to both devices and the immigration things that are happening. We do have guidance from the State Department of Education. We have legal guidance as well, and we don't collect immigration status, citizenship status. That's illegal for us to do, so we don't have that. Early on, there were some conversations across the state where we got the indication that schools were not a place where law enforcement was to target. And we were very appreciative of that. I can't say that it's like all across the country, but I can say that in Maryland, we haven't had that happen. We haven't had that happen certainly locally. That said, you're right. We do have students and families, and they're working with administration. Some are afraid to send them to school, some are coming in to update information cards, things of that nature. But we have great support systems in place, great student services staff, counselors. We have multiple community liaisons, and those folks are really supporting our families right now. And in a lot of ways, school is a place where the kids do feel comfortable and feel like they have a connection.
I kind of jump in on this too. One of my coworkers who's in my feeder pattern, her brother-in-law was picked up and detained and deported down to Texas, and so they're going through all kinds of legal hurdles and things like that. And I was talking with her the other day, and she knows about my role with this, and I was like, is there something that you'd want me to communicate And right now, her 3 nephews, one is of age but is being homeschooled because of his autism, and then the younger ones also have varying levels of autism. One's baby, so they're not yet in SCPS schools, but they are in the system. And she's speaking tonight down the road about that experience. But what she was really hoping that I might be able to communicate is thanks for the staff and the faculty members who are making students feel more comfortable and welcomed and safe, but also an awareness that not all of those staff or other students are, and safety concerns for those kids who are not having that 100% around them, but also, and maybe this is a better question for the counseling department, but I told her I'd bring it up, like what resources are being provided to the student support at school to kind of discuss this at an age-appropriate, developmental appropriate level, because they are bringing it in, whether it's their fear from what they're hearing at home or what they're hearing around them, but just wanting to advocate for to help support some of these kids that are going through that, whether it's directly or indirectly with other family members.
I would share that Dr. Paul has shared, who oversees our multi-curricular program, is that our job is to provide community resources. We have great community partners, and instead of us getting in the middle of something, we're giving them resources to connect with experts really who can support. We're not experts in this.
No.
You know, and so we are trying to connect families with
You know, one thing to note is, you know, the impact that this can possibly have in the student, right? Imagine, you know, you're super anxious, your grades are going to decrease. So, you know, now it's having an impact on the performance of the school system. There's also absenteeism, there's also dropout, and that affects the budget. So there is like a cascade of ramifications of, you know, the little child who is feeling anxious, because there are several children who may be going through that.
absolutely. You're spot on.
Yeah. On that note, I was wondering, you know, the schools that have a lot of immigrant families, do they all have PTAs? Because I understand the PTA helps access certain resources that may not be available if there's not an organization there to help
They
access those resources.
They have PTAs, but they also are mostly community schools.
Okay.
And so that was an amazing gift that came with the legislation. And it provides a community coordinator at every school along with a nurse, and additional resources so schools can, again, partner with outside entities to address student needs and get kids what they need. And so even outside of a PTSA, I would say really the work of our community coordinators right now are beautiful timing.
So they also tend to have their ears to the ground and develop a lot of trust within the communities and be able to talk with them and what their needs are directly.
We do it in a very safe environment. I teach at a community school. So they, you know, the resources that they have available for school, after school, all that stuff. We see families coming in all the time. I mean, medical centers, we think, you know, we don't think much about even just going to the doctors. But I was going to ask a question about ICE as well. Teaching a community where it's targeted by that village. So I guess what are ways like we're discussing walk to and from school as well for those students that are walkers, because, you know, like you said, like the bus stop, all those are SCPS property. We're responsible for them once they leave their house to get to school, once they go home. So there has been like some targeting in other Maryland jurisdictions with students where, you know, there's something we can do, like community schools can do. I know some have done walking programs where they have parent volunteers that walk a group of students there, or, you know, something like that.
I'd love for you to hear perspective, the work that's being done. our school teams know our students so well. It's really an individualized support system that they're trying to put in place because every family is in a different situation, under circumstances. And so we're addressing it from an every child, every day perspective and what each individual child needs. And attendance has been a concern, but for moments, break time periods.
I can comment on just what I know in our area. There is a lot of support in place for exactly what you're talking about, like getting to school, safe places to stay, and those tend to not be official, like this is the school program. It's more families kind of come together. We know all of our families too, right? So it's more of an informal, like, let's make sure that so-and-so gets to school, or, maybe stay with me for a little while. So there's a lot of that going on that isn't like official, that goes through the office or anything, but it is happening. It's happening a lot. And so I think a lot of people are doing everything they can that we know to do right now. And everybody wishes we could do more, I think. But there's a lot of, especially, I'm at a high school. My kids are both in high school. So, they drive, a lot of them walk, and they may, so there's different issues with that. We've had several students be separated from their families. And so we've had to, and they're still in that, a couple in the fall. And so just to help that family through that and kind of figure out what do they need, and our schools have been so amazing with resources like just food and clothing, laundry soap. If your parent's gone and you need to do laundry, well, those are basic things, but what do I do? And so just those kinds of things that are happening, and I can tell you that firsthand.
I mean, I was just saying it's amazing what schools can do with that. And the fact is, schools are the safest place for students because, like you said earlier, in Maryland, it's a protected place that they can't just go around. My concern is always, my students that I teach, getting to and from. Sometimes they will go after even younger kids. Older siblings I've had leave a classroom because they had to go grab their sibling because someone saw a ice truck in the neighborhood and they grabbed them to get them home. So it's like, but schools are doing an amazing job, especially the community schools. That is an amazing setup. It really is.
I can speak to my visits to Hillcrest, Butterfly Ridge, and Waverly. The level of engagement that our administrators and our community school coordinators have in those communities is phenomenal. Particularly when you look at this year in particular, what you saw at their back-to-school nights was amazing, because you would think that might be an area of fear gathering, but they had huge turnouts and they engaged with those families at such a level that there is that real feeling of community. She was in Mr. Anderson's office one day, calling home to report successes some of the kids were having, and it gets at your heart. It's good stuff that particularly those three administrations really did a great job with their communities.
I think that's what also makes it a little bit more challenging in some ways. I was at Lincoln for a number of years, and you become part of that community, and so it's great when they let you in and you can really do a lot of work with them and support. But then you take it so personally too, and you're really invested, and that means too that other people, not just staff members, but other kids there are invested in the safety of others. So that makes it more challenging because, I've got kids in my office now who I'm worried about so-and-so in my school. I'm worried about my friend, blah, 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 blah. And that gets really hard. It's an unfortunate, unnecessary added weight that they're carrying around, and just, making sure that they have a space to be able to talk about that and share about that, because I know it gets touchy for a lot of families.
Thank you for sharing that, because that's exactly what we're hearing at the schools too. butterfly wings, and it impacts the whole community.
Some of my hardest years teaching, but like some of like distinct best memories.
That's right.
So I will say the other topic is a fun one to talk about. PMDs, as we call them in our regulation, personal mobile devices or cell phones, the bad word. I think we're coming to do a board presentation that you requested. Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
You are.
And it was so very timely because in our first Teachers Advisory Council meeting of the year, the secondary breakout was full of conversation about cell phones. And so I did say to the high school group in particular, and it was a fascinating conversation because middle and high were together. And I don't think the high school teachers understood that middle is off and away all day. Can't have them. And it doesn't mean that a kid won't pull it out, but it's far easier to address because there's a clear standard. There's no question. If I see it, I know it's not allowed. Whereas at high schools, there's a little gray.
Yeah.
And it is, in the hallway and at lunchtime. And it maybe if the teacher says, yes, it's okay, because I know you scan your homework assignments or take a picture of it, that kind of thing. So, and that was really what our stakeholders asked for the first go-round. But now I think we're hearing clearly that they're saying, just take them away. Now, that not everybody's saying it, but by and large, a lot are. And I think that it is just easier all the way around. I've also been seeing they're finally coming out with more and more real studies that the most recent one I saw indicated that the drop in academic achievement actually occurred well before the pandemic and was right at the time of cell phones. And
Smartphone.
yeah,
Is that what we call them?
right,
Yeah.
smartphones.
The
It's
dummy
smart
box. The
instead
dummy
of-
box.
The ones that really take our attention away
That's
from
right.
things, right?
Yep.
And middle schools have just said, in the places where it's going really well, kids, at lunch, talk to each other now.
So actually, that was what I wanted to bring up. That was what my SI was about, is that I feel like that's inconsistent at different middle schools. And as a mom, I want my kids' middle school to ban them at lunch because they don't get off of them. They play video games the whole time. I'm not there to kick his little butt into turning it off, take it away, even though I've repeatedly asked them to sandbox my kid and go outside.
Yeah.
And so on this next wave, as a mom and as a mental health provider, please get rid of them as much as possible. Like, I think that it allows a lot of really great stuff, but I hear all about cheating in my office from different people and the way that they're able to cheat. They're not learning things, then they're struggling when they get to the next grade level or when they go to college because they didn't learn these things. They're not interacting with their peers. They have no idea how to have a conversation. It's a lot. So I was like jumping for joy when that first thing came out and everyone's like, oh yeah, they say that. I was like, no, I think they mean it this time. And I do feel like overall the schools have done a really good job of trying to implement that, but I'm ready for the next level.
Yes.
So
Next level, we need to get into high school, and we need to make that more restrictive. There's also been a tremendous amount of legislation, bills dropping right now in session around cell phones, requiring them to be locked and that kind of thing. So as I've read them, because we have to do fiscal notes, we're pretty well in line. Some call for flexibility at high school. I'm ready to just say no more cell phones.
I'm a radical.
Yeah.
I did not support the previous
Yeah.
policy because I believe it's all K through 12, off and away, all times, never out.
Look at the
It's
mental
our
health studies.
responsibility to adjust.
Yes.
Those kids that
Yes.
say, oh, I'm gonna scan the home, we'll adjust.
Yeah,
We should adjust to
yes,
them.
Yes.
The phone should never be out.
And you don't need it. We
I
have
agree.
Schoology now.
In the middle schools that are sticking hard to it, lunch is it's amazing Over Christmas, I visited a couple of schools during lunch, and they were just having a ball.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's amazing what
it was
happens
different.
when they figure out how
Then you go to a high school,
Paper
and then
football.
again, it's like a tomb. They are
You know
like
what my
this.
college kids are telling me?
Where
They can't make friends because nobody in the dining hall will put a phone away in order to like make friends to meet people. I'm like, oh my gosh, like they're really struggling. And I've got some who are really good about putting the phone away, and those are the ones who are struggling a lot.
Yeah.
Because other people aren't. And I will tell you, out of my three, one of mine is awful about being on, you use the word addicted. Like, I'm about ready to be like, this is your diagnosis on top of all the other things. But if you look at the science with like our kids with ADHD, they literally can't. They need someone to take it away from them.
it is,
Their brain is not
the term that you
developed.
said, oh, I don't want to use it, that it isn't too strong. They are addicted.
Yes, they are.
It is an addictive,
And it is-
and particularly, there's a lot of evidence on the social media. The social media side is an addiction.
Yeah.
They designed their social media algorithms intentionally to addict our children. And it's no different than cigarette, than the old cigarette ads. It's the exact same thing. So I'll stop talking because I'm a radical on this and I want them.
I'm right there with you, so.
I'm also a radical.
So there we go. So now I got my second vote. I just need
I
two
will
more.
say, as a parent, my son loves technology. We gotta limit him.
Yes.
First thing he has to do, homework, do when he comes home. We were talking about the other day. As a teacher, it takes more time out of your lessons telling kids to put it away all day, because it's not just a, hey, put it away. It's a put it away, wait time, oh, jump over here, and so it's interrupted lessons all the way through. And sometimes it's the struggle. It's the, I'm gonna put it away, and now you're in a
Power struggle.
location that you need to be in. It's a first relationship building. And cell phones, yeah, they need to be banned. I mean, there's so much research about dopamine addictions.
Yeah.
And there's also the safety part of it too. Cell phones are used to film every fight, set up every fight, you know what doors are open. You know, hey, come to this door, people can get into school. It's a huge safety thing as well.
Absolutely.
So, as much as I love my cell phone, high school, I mean K through 12, there's no reason to have it. If you need to make a phone call, the old school method, they call the main office or walk to the main office, or even if we want to put some pay phones back in there, that'd be pretty cool. Just so- I know, but
Because I didn't have my cell phone to text you, because I don't allow my middle schoolers to take their cell phones to school with them unless they're staying for like theater practice or whatever.
Yeah.
And she was staying, she's like, I didn't have my cell phone to let you know I wasn't feeling well to come pick me up. And I was like, the nurse has a phone. Like, yes, go talk to her.
Used to just go to the front office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to say too, a very genius approach for the school system would be to hire someone in high school or right out of high school to know how these kids are doing workarounds. Because my kid, I've got settings on here all the time for him. He can find workarounds.
Yeah.
He's highly intelligent and he's on it before I can. And I literally had kids telling me, Mandy, I'm not gonna stop telling you how we're getting around because I think you're using this against your children. And I was like, please don't stop telling me. But if you hire some sort of, pay them a lot of money, they will tell you all the workarounds these kids are using in order to access things they're not supposed to be. Because we put up all these blockers, you know, as the school system, as parents, and they're finding workarounds faster than we can keep
No,
up.
and the
my
other
students tell me to work around.
Well, they used to, and that's what I'm telling you, they cut me off.
Hey, make sure your son doesn't do this because you can do this. And I'm like, oh, really? Let me put that in my notebook.
I legitimately did, and then they were like, I think you're using this for your own kids, and I was like, oh, I kind of am.
There's also, some parents, they don't want their children to access social media. I'm one of them. Social media,
Yep.
15 years or older. But if other kids are accessing it in school, now my daughter is going to be exposed to that. So there's also that piece that, needs to be considered. That at some point parents who are very conservative on the use of social media are going to be bringing that more and more.
And we also have to convince, believe it or not, we had pushback from parents about not being able to reach their kids.
Oh, yes.
So we have to do an education piece with parents as well. But you do know there are phones in the office and that.
They were texting, they knew about the 2-hour early dismissal probably before I did, because the kid's mom texted him in the middle of class, and, my kids found out when the kid told the teacher, maybe you should check your email, I think we're going home early.
We hear it from teachers all the time. Where
Uh-huh.
they will
Parents are just as
tell a
bad.
kid, what are you doing and who are you talking to? My mom.
My mom, they call it the middle class all the time.
All the time. So, I mean, we're gonna have to do an education piece there too and prepare ourselves because I'm taking the liberty of speaking to some districts that went all in. And they're great. They share. They're like, the first semester was a living hell. Referrals, confiscations, it was constant. But after that, the second semester was better. The second year,
It's
they
just the way
said
we do
game
business.
changer.
It's the way we do business.
Just
It's a
a
boot camp.
just a
You
game
have to.
Yep.
It's a
But they
boot
had to
camp.
be, it's like I always use this in coaching, had to be hard. They said you have to be hard.
Yeah.
And that means no exceptions. That if it, whatever the rule is, if it's out once and you put it away, great. If it's out a second time, it's in a,
I'll tell you one of the
it's in a
pushbacks
box
you're
in
gonna
the
get.
office and mom and dad can come get it.
One of the
But it's,
pushbacks,
you gotta be hard.
one of the pushbacks you're gonna get, because I've heard this from parents, is safety. And what if there's, you know, an active shooter? What if this? What if this? And so just when you're preparing things, be able to address it with those
Well,
groups of.
You know, it's so funny that
you know.
during the last presentation that we had on this, when we made this half decision, we actually had law enforcement, one of our SROs came here and testified and said, no, we don't want them.
Yeah, they don't want.
They interfere with our job. Then you've got all kinds of misinformation flying. It can tie up cell towers. He said it absolutely
I'm on
is
board.
unnecessary.
I'm just saying, I think you need to make sure that you
But
address that.
that's the pushback, that's the pushback we got with people.
Yeah.
that, oh my God, if there's the worst case scenario, I won't be able to reach my child.
That is one of my,
Well, that
That
will
is
be,
a-
that will put your child at risk.
And that was the reason I allowed my middle schooler to own a phone. We were not, no phones. And then there was a drill or something, and I was like, okay. So it's off and away.
Yeah.
But
now there's data that shows that actually puts your child at a greater risk.
yeah.
one of my students said it the best. They're on social media too. So every time you blast out a text or go on WhatsApp or group text or any of that stuff, you're actually giving your location. I'm in Mr. Rose's room. We're scared, that type of thing. Guess what? If I want to go target you, I know exactly where you are. Versus the idea that if I go in that situation, which should never be, I mean, it just happened in Montgomery County, but
Today,
yeah, student.
single event.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, they're on social media too,
Yeah.
and they could be in the group chat, they could be anywhere. So, one of my students brought that up, and I hadn't even thought of that before.
Yeah.
That, you know, you tweet something out, and people say where they are, and now, oh, I know exactly where to go and be a target.
Locations show up. on
And
social
sharing
media.
your location too, I
Yeah.
didn't think of that either.
Yeah, the SRO that spoke, he said that's a myth. That's a myth that we get information from children inside the school that's valuable. It's not.
I would love
It's-
for them
It's confusing. It's,
to do more presentations. It was probably, I don't know, like 8 years ago. The SRO, one of the SROs came out to Carroll Manor Elementary when I was there and spoke with me about online safety. I still repeat what this guy says, and it's like, he says, it is your job as a parent to search your kid's room, to go through their phones, to do that, you know, and like gave parents permission to do these. I would love more opportunities for SROs to be able to speak to the schools, and I know they're hard to get, you know, in, and then you have to get parents to actually go and attend these, but I do think there are parents who would attend, you know, certain presentations, because there are many parents that I work with who are really wanting to know, how do I keep them safe? What do I do about this? How do I address this? I don't want them to have a phone, but everybody else has a phone. How do I, you know? And I think the SROs that I heard, and it sounds like this guy too, that information is invaluable to a parent to making their decision and be able to have a little bit of a backbone to stand up and say, nope, actually.
It was a couple of years ago, and I'll circle back with Scott Blundell, our director of management. We did engage all of the SROs, and I think they did regional presentations, they tried to hit the whole county.
Yeah.
It's probably time to do that again.
Yeah, I would love it. It had to have been before COVID, you know? That's where I'm gauging my time and like what school was I at that point in time, but like,
And technology has changed, so
Technology
I
has
think what you
changed.
have to say is probably going to be really
They're
different.
seeing.
I remember learning about the Vault that night, which was like shocking, where like kids can have like a second phone on their phone. had no
So
idea.
just a time check,
It's
we have about
ridiculous.
8 minutes.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. Do you all have any other?
The only other thing that I wanted to bring up that was a concern for people that I was hearing is there's lots of, does anyone know what's happening with all of the snow days going on? Because people are trying to plan their spring breaks and their summers. And so maybe just a blast out to reiterate what the policy is for snow days and where we are.
That's great feedback, and I was just sharing with Mr. Rose. We're gonna have a conversation Wednesday at the board meeting. There's an item about the academic calendar, and so we'll be able to nicely fit in the conversation.
in there.
We're gonna weave into that presentation because we need to, the board has to have a conversation about what other days they would use aside from the 5 that are added into the end of the calendar. As of right now, we have to use the 5 that are at the end of the calendar. And so it's one of those things we're gonna have to step out when we get a time, see where things go. There's conversations at the state level about waivers, but waivers are not blanket, and they have to be done on an individualized basis. Everybody's circumstance is different, everybody's calendar is different. And so right now, the last day of school, what was it? Is it June 16th?
16th.
June 16th.
Right.
And so I think once they have a conversation, there will be a communication where we can say the board discussed and here's where we are.
I appreciated it because they were like, we want to be able to send them to school. And so we don't want to make plans, but at the
Yes.
same time, like,
Yes.
I couldn't remember. And I was like,
And oh my goodness, we're gonna have the shortest summer ever because I think teachers come back like August 13th.
uh-huh. I think school starts the 19th. Is that-
Yeah, it's a really short summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, so board member Karen Yoho submitted a request. She wanted to have a session or meeting with all the CAC members and the Board of Education. She said, while we receive a report from the board member liaison, communication with representatives from CAC and the full board could provide prove beneficial as this committee, the system and the board move forward. Topics could include how often the CAC meets, processes for changing the frequency of meetings, ironically, and how the CAC could help the system or board improve our redistricting process, general improvements to communication as the board's eyes and ears around.
So is that meeting set up yet, or is she?
So she's just requesting that we,
I'll take the blame. I'll put that on hold.
oh, I'm sorry, jeez.
Because I want you involved in that.
Are you looking at me personally or, okay, everybody else?
I want CAC to set those criteria.
Okay.
I don't think the board should be telling you what to do. You're our liaisons to the public,
Yeah.
but I do want you to discuss. I think we need to be more forward in our reporting to the board about what we discuss, what we're talking about, and those issues, and maybe we need to share the role that you play. You play a valuable role, particularly in the policy committee. Your input played a valuable role in many of the difficult conversations we had, because if you remember the last time in the fall, we had some discussions about, and your feedback played a role in where we went on those policies. So maybe we need to share that your input that you gathered from your friends, community members, played a role in that. So I just don't want to cloud the issue with a board presentation yet until you all have been able to gather and determine your own path and what.
That's a great leeway that our bylaws need to be reviewed every 2 years.
Oh, that's great.
And so our last review was in November of '23. So we do need to review the bylaws.
Okay.
So I'm wondering if we can take some of this discussion and incorporate a plan, maybe like a report, or something to the board on a consistent basis, or look at our bylaws and make some adjustments to what the committee wants to do.
I would also, we were just talking about, when we just hear each other about, the last time we saw each other was November.
Yes.
Like, what, November is like 3 months ago. I mean, I think it would be helpful to meet a little more frequently. The question is how frequent, right? Because we're all so busy already.
Right.
And what makes sense, right? I mean, there's so much information we can also get from our community friends and connections. So, but yeah, every quarter, it doesn't seem like enough, at least from my perspective.
I agree. From a history perspective, when we started, we met once a month. But at that time, we were like a reconstituted committee, so we were trying to figure out what our path was going to be. And so we met once a month, and we didn't always feel like we had a lot of meat and potatoes to digest and have those big conversations. Like, I think we've had a lot of really good ones. In this particular committee, I think is amazing. Like, I leave these meetings every time super excited and charged up. We've had intellectual conversations about really important things that matter to the county and to the school system and our whole community. And so I would definitely like to see us meet more often. It's very hard like to go back and say, well, November policy we did, because that was 3 meetings ago for policy committee, and we had 6 or 8 meetings by then. So I think more often would be good. I think we should talk about that also with more of our friends when they come
Yeah,
back.
and also how do we connect with the PTAs? That's one thing that's been on my to-do list in my mind, right? I mean, I attended one meeting and never went back. But it doesn't mean that we must be members of it, but at least try to connect with them so that they also feed us information. You know, they know their school so well.
I think some schools have more active PTAs than others, so having another opportunity or option in addition to PTAs would gather information.
Yeah.
Is probably.
Yeah, but so how would we go about updating our bylaws? Like, do we have to wait 3 months until our next meeting to do that?
So the bylaws read now that the bylaws will be reviewed every 2 years by the officers. The chairperson will submit them with or without changes to the general membership for review and final approval. And the membership will receive the proposed bylaws at least 20 days prior to the vote. So the officers need to meet, look at the bylaws, propose that 20 days before the next meeting. And then we have that discussion in the meeting to update the bylaws. And vote.
Things in May.
So we could do that in May if
Absolutely.
we do the preparation before.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we just need to bring the.
So that's our president, vice president, and secretary to meet required, right? To meet, okay. And then send out the copy of revisions proposed,
Draft,
or,
Correct.
okay, at least 20 days ahead.
At least 20 days.
Gotcha.
Okay, 20 days ahead. Okay. And I know our president, the vice president, and the secretary is our colleague who didn't make it today. Okay. We could use volunteers if you ladies are.
We could create a subcommittee also to be a part of that. But again, we will be discussing it with the whole committee, and the information will go out in advance so that people can come prepared with additional questions or discussion points.
Okay, so then it has to be these 3 people who work on the. Sorry, can you repeat the process again?
Sure, the elected officers for the committee are the ones that do the first draft.
Okay, got it.
That's the easiest way to put it.
Okay.
They would do the first draft, but then send it to the full committee prior to, again, that next meeting, at least 20 days in advance, so that the full committee can then review also with questions, make suggestions, and then changes can still be made at that meeting where the bylaws are reviewed, discussed, and then voted.
Okay, perfect. It's perfect clear. So I'll work with the friends. What time is it? We finish at 7, right?
Yeah, we do have 6 to 8 is what the board holds this for, but we normally finish at 7.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that. That's good to know that we have 2 full hours next time.
I want to add something about PTSAs if we have time.
Yes, of course, we do have time.
So I am a PTSA president in Walkersville, and I know that each zone does things differently. Our presidents are we do talk a lot together, so we have 3 feeder elementaries, 1 middle and 1 high, so there are 5 of us. And some of us we do like staff appreciation activities, so there's a bunch of different connections that we have. But in my role here with CAC, I have kept in touch with them and visited their groups, and they do have, especially at the elementary level, that's where you get all the parents to come to all those things. I miss those days. So it's nice to just go out, and I first started like explaining what we do, what we are, also when, like, what the board is talking about, or just kind of basic things that we know a lot more than the general public because we're here. So sometimes I forget, I'm like, well, what does everybody else know? Because no one else is reading all of these things and discussing and coming in here once or twice a month. Do you know what I mean?
I've learned a ton.
Yeah. So it's, I had to step back and think, well, what would I want to know, you know, as a new parent or whatever.
Yeah.
So I just invite myself to those meetings if I can go, you know, and just, it's nice to talk to different people and just let them know that we're here.
Yeah.
And yeah, they don't know who we are, so but as a PTSA president, I've been approached by all kinds of people to do all kinds of stuff. So it's okay to go ahead and do that. And usually on the website, there's a PTSA or a PTA website for each school, and then you should be able to find the officers and the email addresses there. You can also call the school and ask, because they'll be able to tell you also.
I've also shared, like, on my personal Facebook page, like, just like a brief note of like, hey, I'm working with the customer feeder pattern. If anybody needs anything, let me know. And that's how I've gotten stuff too, because people kind of talk to people.
Yeah.
No, we could do like a one pager with ideas, because, you know, when do we bring new people to the group?
Usually at the end of the school year, we'll open it up for members.
Because I have to say, for me, it was like, okay, what are we doing? You know, it's so much to learn. So if there was anything to guide people that are coming to understand what the role is, it would be really helpful. And you have been doing this for a while, so you already know. So. Okay.
It has evolved too. I mean, I think we're still evolving, you know, and I think as the board changes, right, with each election cycle, the policy committee changes, everything changes. So I think we have been evolving and changing, and Lindsay and I were original here, and we're like, you know, we don't know where we're going with this, but we're going to stick around. And so here we are. So I can tell you it's been, you know, just, I think we're landing in a really good spot, and I think all that time got us here, which I think is very valuable.
I think it'd be good for us to kind of be able to come up with, like, what is the difference, if there is any, for people in terms of what is public comment at a board meeting compared to here, because I don't know that I've had anyone actually, while I've been here, do a public comment. Somebody came, but then they were like, oh, this isn't what I wanted, and then left.
Yep.
So, like, what is the difference, you know, to people? What kinds of things can they bring to this kind of public comment versus a board of ed meeting? That'd be helpful, kind of.
I could hold a public comment in Spanish. I know Spanish for our group, for this group at some point.
That would be really helpful. Yeah.
Okay, great. No, these are great ideas. I think perhaps, you know, in our next, when we have a fuller house with other friends from the group, we can come up with some more ideas and maybe put it in a one pager or something to help guide new people that come on board, and even us, right, as reminders of what we can do. Great, excellent. Before we finish, maybe I'll just leave one thing for policy. I don't know if there's anything on AI yet. But just to put a note there, since we've been talking a lot about cell phones and new technologies, AI is like a Pandora's box. It's, yeah. So how kids are going to be using it, especially as they get older. So there needs to be guidance on how they should use, or they shouldn't use it at all. And there's already some research coming out about, you know, AI and what it does to critical thinking for learners. So yeah. So something to consider for the near term, because AI is already among us.
I'm wondering if we can have some additional information, Dr. Alavito, about AI at our next meeting to kind
Do
of,
that. There is a guidance document out on AI, but that was another topic that came up at Teachers Advisory Council. We also sometimes are sort of waiting for the Maryland State Department of Education to weigh in. They did put out guidance recently. We're pretty well aligned, and right now, I mean, AI is here, and kids are going to use it, and we have to teach them the appropriate way to use it and when not to use it. And so that's what the team is working on, and I think we need an update before we go into next year, because teachers, you know, sometimes we have conversations centrally where it's, well, we're waiting on the state and we need this piece of information, but it's here and it's in our classrooms, and our teachers need something now. And so we've kind of pushed a little bit to say, last Teachers Advisory, I connected our team with a couple teachers who have some work that they're doing. Linganore High in particular is working with a consortium of higher education facilities, institutions, and they're already doing things like having a course for all freshmen at the beginning coming in. We need to have something a little bit more structured than just a guidance document.
Are we tuned into how students are using AI actually, or what we think they're doing? Because I saw my own kid using it to simplify a question on a test. And I was like, wait a minute, like, can you do that on MCAP? He's like, no, but I can do it on this. And I was like, first of all, you're highly intelligent. You do not need that. Use your brain, right? But and then like, again, listening to my own kids, listening to other parents, listening to kids in my office, I'm like, they use it for a lot of different things that I'm not even sure the teachers are really aware of all of the ways that they're using it. Maybe they are. I don't know, but I think it would behoove us to have at least some ideas of the ways that they may be using it so that we can kind of try and address what's appropriate and what's not.
Absolutely, and I think that's happening right now, but I think it's not consistent across site, and it's not consistent across classroom as we need it to be.
Yeah, because when I heard some of the ways they're using it, I was like, holy moly, like, this is not good.
There is AI that helps teachers figure out what kind of AI they're using, so,
I use it all the time.
yeah, so I think
But plagiarism.
the kids might think that the teachers don't know, but I think
I know, but they feel like they're always one step ahead of me, and so like, just making sure that like they're not pulling something over on somebody who may, because you have some really tech savvy teachers, and you have some not tech savvy teachers, and so the not tech savvy ones are probably getting the wool pulled over their eyes in a lot of ways because they don't know how these kids are using it, right? And so just to be aware of like how are they using it. Again, if we have less screens, then we have less AI use, but that's a whole nother soapbox.
I would say cell phones and AI are the two big issues that we're having a lot of conversations about right now.
I think with AI too, it's also like how to use it in a good way. So like my friend was making up some questions for a therapy group, and so she wanted to do like would you rather, and it was like a Valentine's theme. So she put that in there, and I mean you can only come up with so many ideas, right? I could not come up with 20 of those, but AI gave her. So I thought, like, well, that's a cool way to go. I mean, it was very safe, very innocuous, right? But then my son, in his college essay, wrote it all himself. 100% watched him do it. And then he put it through an AI checker, and the AI checker said that he used AI for 60% of his essay.
Yeah.
So he freaked out and emailed the admissions counselor that he was working with at Towson to say, hey, this is what happened. I mean, what is going on? Like, I don't want to send this in. And she said, don't worry about it. I understand that happens to everybody. So it was like, well, that's also disconcerting to kids who are trying to stay clean. And then, he's like, well, I can't send this in, but it's mine. I'm like, I know.
Yeah,
So it's just,
There was actually a major lawsuit at college level where a student was accused of AI. And because the AI models that they can determine plagiarism, but now there's just a recent report that when they're just trying to identify was it AI, they fail 80% of the time.
yes, I think that's what.
And it's actually in the wrong way. They identify it as AI when it's not, and it's a failure rate of 80%.
Yeah.
Said they can identify that you stole the phrase from a book or wherever, but it's not good at identifying it. It's outsmarted itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't use the checkers just to prove that they used AI to write a story because it's too smart now.
Yes.
It can check to see if you pulled a plagiarized. They're all out there. Everybody else's term paper's out there now. So it can check that. It can check, oh, this was written by somebody.
My paper, listen, I made the kids write their whole paper in AI. I made them do ChatGPT, and then they had to go back through and research what they were. So,
Great assignment.
Yeah, I've read that, that's a
Right,
great,
because it's
great
very
tool for
imperfect.
teachers,
And
Yeah.
we have
AI
to
is
show
not-
them that it's
AI is
got
not, like,
flaws.
Chevrolet is using AI and sold like a Chevy Tahoe for $1. There's another company that lost millions of dollars because they were using AI for something. And then Google just said they don't know what their part of their AI is doing. So AI is very imperfect. I have a student who taught an AI bot to turn his notes into simplified worksheets for him. So you can do that.
It's a
You can
great way.
teach bots to do that, and it's worked well for some students, especially if you're like in chemistry and you're like, man, what are these? They can put it in notes that way. And then other people use it to write their whole papers. But then they turn into papers and you're like, that's not even a source, buddy. That's it's like 1903. And they don't read it. So it's about teaching kids how to use it effectively and also understand AI is not 100% at all. You know, you have a better chance if you dust off an Encyclopedia Britannica, and well, for some things because they had to update that too. But you know what I mean? Yeah, it's just like a. It's just a switch in mindset. You know what I mean?
But getting rid of these would solve a lot of the really bad problems with
I work with the American Academy of Pediatrics, and we're rewriting the clinical service provider guidelines for ADHD. And we were having a conversation, like, when people go and we update these guidelines that are supposed to come out this year, if you were to type in something using AI, how do you know that you're getting the most up-to-date version of that source versus an out-of-date one? And you get, a busy provider who like types it in and they get, the 2020 version of it instead of the 2026 version or whatever the last date is of the old one. And it's like, he doesn't tell you unless you ask for more sources. And even then, like, it's combining information from thousands of sources that may be out of date. And that's like,
We found out with the papers that they wrote. They were reading. I was like, Martin Luther King was dead by the time, and they have him in there, and it's like, oh my God! But having to go back and research it, then they're like, oh, I'm not using
that.
AI for this, and you're just like, I got you. Let's try it the other way, buddy.
All right, well, that's, any final things, or otherwise we're gonna go to closing?
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, yeah, that's it, okay.
Second?
I'll second.
Thank you very much. So next meeting, May 11th.